2010 to 2020, as has been said, was declared by our heads of state and government the Women's Decade in Africa, because there is an increasing recognition that we cannot leave women outside all the areas of human endeavor. 50% of the talent, if you don't include women in everything, it means you are missing out on 50% of the continent's talent. And of course, we can never hope that that continent will grow to its full potential if half of its people are left out. So it's very critical that this talent is used, and it makes perfect economic sense. So this decade, we would like to use it to concentrate on a number of issues that pertain to women. The first one, we would like to decrease maternal mortality. Giving birth in many developed countries is a normal, physiological, and is an occasion, a happy occasion to bring a new life to the world. But for many women on our continent, it's risking your life, and it shouldn't be so. So we'll be working with partners across the world to ensure that we can prevent those preventable maternal deaths. And of course, women perform that function not only to have children, but it's also to ensure the continuation of the human race. Because if they stop doing that, we will be extinct as a human race. So the other area, we would like to develop women leadership. Women should be in politics. It's very critical because politics in our continent determines whether you have water running in your house, whether you have electricity, whether you have a road, whether you have a bridge, whether you can be in business. So if women stay out of politics, then it means there are issues, their rights, which are human rights, will also be left out. So it's very important that the parliaments should have a critical number of women, and the critical number of women in my book is 50% or more. Anything less does not tally with the demography of the continent, and probably the same demography exists elsewhere, including here. And we have seen in countries where they've women taking decisions in critical areas. If we look at the Scandinavian countries, there is development there, but with a difference. And it's very people-centered because it's driven by women who are very sensitive to the needs of the people in general. The other area where we think women during this decade must really make a difference is in agriculture, and we want to promote them and make sure that they become also entrepreneurs, small, medium size, and move away from micro. And generally in business, it makes sense that women should be in business generally. So we'd like our partners who come to the continent to do business, want to do joint ventures, to also work with women. Training also must include women. And so that by 2020, we can see a real difference from where women were in 2010 and where they will be in 2020. But of course, this has to be done by the women themselves. They must define what they want, and we must support what they want. And of course, we must also ensure that their right to health, just like everybody's right to health, should be ensured. We must ensure that education and training, employment and business opportunities for women are a reality. And access to land. For most of our countries, women don't own land. And we must keep discussing this until they have a right to own land. And also, access to finance is very difficult for women. So this must be dealt with so that they have access to finances. But of course, a lot of attention has to be paid to the youth so that they'll be able to drive Africa's development and also become part of the middle class that can also consume what we produce. But in order to promote investments in our continent, we will also continue to implement reforms aimed at improving business regulatory frameworks and harmonize business laws and investment codes. And of course, we are very much aware that the prevalence of peace and security is also a necessary condition to ensure the attainment of Africa's development goals and objectives, as there can be no development without peace and security. In this regard, we are working very hard to assist Mali and the Sahel region, but Mali to regain its territorial integrity and to move towards the democratic elections. And of course, we support them in wanting to remain a republic and a secular state that they are, and efforts are underway to get the Malian armed groups to abandon cessation and to come to negotiations and to de-link themselves with the terrorist and criminal groups. And of course, the United Nations is also, Security Council is seized with this matter, looking at intervention force and all that. Again, in this regard, you would have seen that the DRC, Eastern Congo, there is a lot of problems around Goma, with the M23 rebels having taken over Goma. But there was a swift reaction because by Saturday last week, there was a summit to look at this. And together with the Great Lakes region, the AU participated in that meeting where certain decisions were taken, and those decisions were also endorsed by the African Peace and Security Council on Monday. So we hope that the M23 will indeed withdraw from Goma and that a neutral force will be there to normalize the situation. We continue to work with Somalia, Sudan, South Sudan, Guinea-Bissau, and Madagascar to also resolve the problems they have at the moment. And we are going to continue expanding democracy, respect for human rights, good governance, and these are all ongoing. But of course, the economic integration of the continent is also an ongoing project, with a number of regional economic communities having the building blocks for the African Union, which have already got free trade areas, and they are working towards common markets. Eventually, the continent will establish a free trade area, which would be continental. But we shall work with member states at all times to ensure that Africa's exports are competitive, as well as addressing supply-side constraints. We shall encourage African countries to take advantage of trade arrangements such as AGOA, for instance. We think there is still a lot that can be done to make sure that countries in Africa benefit more from this arrangement. But as an African continent, we have also decided that we must establish NEPAD, which was established, it's 10 years now, which is our implementing agency for all these programs. We also established the African Peer Review Mechanism. And I think this is very important to understand because it's African countries having a mechanism to look at themselves and to look at a whole range of issues from political, economical, human rights, everything. And they stand before their peers and the reports are given and a plan is developed to correct what has been found to be wanting, where they are wanting. And every year they come back to their peers and they say, this has been done, this has been done. And so it's a very good mechanism. It's a voluntary membership, But that membership has grown because countries have seen the benefit of being in the peer review mechanism. And this is an innovative mechanism that Africans have found for themselves. And of course, I want to repeat that Africa at this moment has endless possibilities for investment and for doing business. The momentum for development on our continent is great. There is a lot of positive energy because we are feeling that the 21st century is going to be the African century. And indeed, in the next 50 years, Africa will be truly prosperous and at peace with itself. Thank you very much.